It is late at night. The room is quiet. Nothing is happening. But inside you, a court is in session. The prosecution is replaying a conversation from 3 years ago. The defense is preparing a rebuttal for an argument that never happened. A witness is testifying about how the future will probably go wrong. And somewhere in the back of the chamber, an older version of you is being cross-examined. You did not choose this. You did not call this session to order. It just started. And the terrifying part is not the noise. The terrifying part is that it feels like thinking. What you are actually inside is a network. A specific, mappable, neurological structure that activates every time your attention turns inward. It is called the default mode network. And understanding what it is, what it does, and how to interrupt it may be one of the most psychologically significant things you can do with your mind. The default mode network is a constellation of brain regions that lights up during inward-directed cognition, autobiographical memory, future simulation, social imagination, moral reasoning, meaning-making, the maintenance of a coherent sense of self. It is, in short, the part of the brain that does the work of being you. And that is not a problem. Memory and imagination are extraordinary tools. The ability to model other minds, to plan ahead, to place yourself inside a story of who you are. That is the deep machinery of human intelligence. The DMN is not the enemy. But when it runs unchecked, when no competing attention system is strong enough to pull you out of the loop, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes a cathedral of mirrors, a private theater where the same play runs every night, a ghost machine, endlessly generating a self that is mostly wound. The mind says it is solving the problem. It is not. It is worshipping the wound. Here is the mechanism. The brain has two broad attentional modes. The default mode network, active during inner wandering, and what researchers call the task-positive network, the system that engages when you are doing something externally directed, following a sequence, solving a defined problem, moving through the world. These two networks are largely anti-correlated. When one rises, the other tends to fall. There is also a third system, the salience network. Its job is to detect what matters and to switch attention toward it. In a well-regulated nervous system, the salience network acts as a gatekeeper. It notices the inner noise and redirects. In a dysregulated one, it keeps sending you back in. The thought feels important. The memory feels unfinished. The imagined future feels like a real threat. And so the DMN keeps running. What this produces at the clinical level is rumination, the correlate of depression, the substrate of chronic anxiety, the mental environment in which the self slowly mistakes its own narration for reality. Carl Jung described the psyche as containing complexes, emotionally charged subpersonalities, wound patterns that hijack perception from the inside. When a complex activates, the inner narrator forgets. It is a narrator. It becomes the whole self. The jealous voice says, I am clear-eyed. The ashamed voice says, I am truthful. The wounded voice says, I am just being realistic. DMN dysregulation is the neurological equivalent of complex possession. The thought loop believes it is you, and as long as you believe it too, it is. Now add modernity to this. The contemporary digital environment is, whether by design or by emergent drift, almost perfectly structured to inflame the inner narrator. The algorithm does not need to control what you think. It only needs to keep the self-narrative unstable. Comparison, outrage, identity threat, social rehearsal without resolution. A person with a dysregulated DMN is easier to sell to, easier to shame, easier to provoke, easier to herd. You do not need a conspiracy to explain this. You only need an attention economy that profits from agitation. Your inner courtroom is a revenue stream. The question is whether you can take it back. Here is what the evidence actually suggests. Focused attention interrupts DMN dominance. When the task-positive network engages, self-referential looping tends to decrease. Meditation practices oriented around narrowing attention to a single object reduce activity in the default mode and, over time, rewire the relationship between awareness and thought. Body-based anchors work because sensory specificity pulls cognition out of abstraction. You cannot fully inhabit an imagined argument and simultaneously track the exact sensation of your feet on the floor. The nervous system chooses. Give it something concrete to choose. This is where the practice begins. Call it the circle break. Not a hack. Not a productivity ritual. A psychological intervention you perform on yourself deliberately as a trained act of inner command. The first movement is naming. When the loop starts, you name what kind of loop it is. Not the content, the structure. This is prosecution. This is future dread. This is imaginary argument. This is identity defense. This is rehearsal. This is not spiritual bypassing. It is what affect researchers call labeling. And the evidence is that labeling a mental state creates distance from it. Distance is the beginning of command. You are not ending the thought. You are refusing to be fused with it. Name the spirit before it wears your face. The second movement is anchoring. Find a physical sensation. Your feet on the floor. The press of thumb against finger. One full breath from beginning to end. 3 hard edges in the room. The farthest sound you can hear. Sensory specificity recruits present moment processing. It engages systems that compete with abstract self-simulation. The mirror cannot hold you if the body is pulling you elsewhere. Return to the body, not as metaphor, as literal interruption. The third movement is action. Before you negotiate with the thought, move, stand up, wash something, step outside, open the document, send the message. Any small act that requires the task positive network to come online. The action does not need to be related to the thought. It only needs to be real, external, sequential, demanding of forward attention. Rumination is a ritual without a banishing. The thought form was summoned but never licensed to depart. Action breaks the circle. It tells the nervous system the session is over. Now, the goal here is not silence. A mind with no inner voice is not a free mind. It is a different kind of trap. The DMN is a tool. Memory is a tool. Imagination is a tool. The private theater is a tool. The ghost machine is useful when you are its operator. What you are building through this practice is not an absence of self-narrative. It is the capacity to step back from the narrative. To watch the courtroom without being on trial inside it. To use the mirror without falling into it. The self is not a prison unless you mistake it for the whole temple. You are not every voice that speaks inside you. Some of those voices are complexes wearing your face. Some are yesterday's fears dressed in the grammar of now. Some are the cultural software of a media ecosystem that profits from your agitation. And some are genuinely yours. Quiet, underneath the noise, waiting for the tribunal to adjourn. Attention is the offering. Withdraw the offering. Break the circle. The mirror is a tool, not a master. If this interrupted a loop that has been running longer than it should, leave a trace below. And if you want the hidden architecture of the mind made visible, you know where to find it. If this stirred something you can't quite put back to sleep, that's your cue. Step into the next layer with my book, Mental Magic for the Modern Magician. Remaining sovereign in a world that wants your soul. It's written to help you cut invisible strings and start running the ritual yourself. Then grab the free ritual guide and watch the initiation playlist to go deeper. Links are waiting below. Until next time.